Indiana Fever versus Las Vegas says its intense emotions are high. Lexie Hull is out there play like her life depends on it. Even though she's barely taped together physically speaking, the crowd buzzing, the tension is thick. And then the whistles start, and they don't stop. One bad call, fine, too frustrating. But by the fifth plainly lopsided whistle in favor Vegas, you no longer watching basketball. You're watching a rigged game show and sneakers. If you're here for the real story and not filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe. And nobody felt that betrayal more than Lexie Hull. Here's a player who wasn't even supposed to be on the floor at full capacity. She's been dealing with injuries, she's been sitting out of practices. But when it came down to this moment, she delivered everything. 16 points, 10 rebounds, diving for loose balls, hitting clutch shots. You to see the pain on her face and fury in her eyes. Every time a ref erased her efforts with a whistle that made zero sense. And that's where this turns I'm a tough game into a full-blown scandal. Because it wasn't just missed calls, it wasn't as a bad day for the officials, it looked deliberate foul after foul gifted to the Aces. No cause when Fever players got smacked. I.O. Wilson, struggling to win her worst shooting night of the season, suddenly started getting bailed out with a kind of calls that make you wonder the refs had money on it. By the third quarter, fans online were already calling it what it looked like, a rigged game. The term corrupt was flying around Twitter like popcorn. Editor, the worst calls went viral in real time, and Lexie she and hold back her post-game reaction fire. She didn't name names, but the tone was crystal clear. This isn't as bad officiating, this is manipulation. And here's the worst part, she's not wrong. The WNBA has been pushing for more exposure, more media coverage, and more mainstream relevance. The Aces, or defending champions, they're flashy, marketable, and heavily promoted. But when that translates into giving one team a script to win, that's not growth, that's damage control disguised sports. This wasn't as a heartbreaking loss or Indiana, it was a credibility crisis for the league. Lexie Hull put her body on a lie. And for this game, so did earlier Boston Kelsey Mitchell, the whole Fever squad, and the message they got back from the officials, nice try. But we've already decided who's winning tonight. That's not just insulting, that's dangerous, because when players start believing the game is fair, when fans believe in the outcome is pre-written, and when social media receipts start piling up, there's no going back. Game 4 isn't as another playoff match. It's the WNBA, a chance to prove the league still belongs of players, not of whistles. Let's not sugarcoat it. Game 3 between the Indiana Fever and Las Vegas Aces didn't just spark controversy. He had detonated it from a moment of final buzzer sounded. It wasn't the scoreline people were talking about, it was the officiating, and leading the outraged Lexie Hull, bruised, battered, and clearly fed up, Hull didn't hold back. She played through pain, left everything on a court, and then wash it off. All unravel the hand a referee crew that seemed determined to hand Aces when fan site player, its social media site, and Lexie how she felt it personally. What happened during Game 3 wasn't just a few missed calls, it was a masterclass in inconsistency. Whistleblower. For every minor Aces can play, while a Fever got slammed, shoved, and swat without so much as a glance from refs. At one point it felt like the only time Indiana got a call was when the ball physically bounced into the official's lap. And somehow, despite all that, Lexie Hull delivered to play our performance that should have been celebrated league wide. 16 points, 10 rebounds, clutch moments, defensive hustle, and she did it while visibly limping, barreling through pain that would sideline most players. But instead, the story being her heart, her grit, her absolute refusal to quit. Everyone's talking about the officiating. Why? Because it was that bad. Let's not pretend this was subtle. The disparity in calls as glaring, the kind of stuff that makes fans start asking uncomfortable questions, the kind of stuff that turns game highlights in viral rig montages. Missed fouls on Boston, phantom foul for the Aces, block. They were called hacks were called nothing, and when I.O. Wilson started breaking shot after shot, the refs stepped in like her personal PR team. Bail and her out with whistles that frankly didn't belong. On professional court, it's hard to call it anything other than favoritism, and no, insanely aces aren't talented, they're the defending champs, they have pedigree. But on this night, they needed help. Any officials were more than happy to give it. Let's talk about there for a second. Io Wilson, the MVP frontrunner, had one or worse performances of the season. She couldn't get anything going. Aaliyah boss and shut down so effectively it looked like Wilson was playing through molasses. But instead of crediting Boston's defense, the refs gifted Wilson trip after trip to the line. Fans weren't stupid. They saw what was happening. The whistles weren't there to balance the game. They were there to tilt it, and Lexie, how she had every right to be furious. She played to injury clock for every rebound, hit big shots under pressure, and then watched it all be undermined by game that felt manipulated. Her post-game frustration wasn't as emotionally was earned. Her team and fought tooth and nail, and league's officiating crew treated it like a formality. That's why the backlash was so immediate. Social media lit up the moment the game ended. Fans didn't just criticize because they documented them, frame by frame breakdowns, slow motion edits, side by side comparisons. It wasn't just subjective, it was evidence. People were reacting to a loss. They were and what looked like a blueprint of a rigged result. And here's the kicker, this isn't just about one game. When officiating bias becomes part conversation, it shakes the foundation of the league. Fans are passionate, but they're not stupid. They can handle losses. What they can handle is feeling like the outcome was never in doubt. There was decided before the tip-off that the league needed the aces to win. And in Game 3, that's exactly how it felt. This controversy didn't just overshadow Lexie Hull's performance, a cast-doubt on legitimacy of the playoff altogether. And this isn't coming out of nowhere. The WNBA has said whispers about inconsistent refereeing for years. But this time the stakes are higher. The lights were brighter, and footage on a normal when clips of missed calls trend faster than the actual highlights. You got credibility problem, and this time the league is no excuse. The evidence is everywhere. The backlash is massive, and the silence from officials only making it worse. Let's be clear, this wasn't a game that the Fever just barely lost. It was a game they should have won if even half of those blown calls gone the right way. We're having a different conversation right now, one about hold play, a breakout about Boston's smothering defense, about Indiana's great. But instead we're asking why referees seem more interested in protecting certain narratives than calling a fair game. The implications go far beyond one series. A fan stop trust in product. It doesn't matter how good the town is. The WNBA has been climbing. Rising stars increase visibility and passionate fan bases. But all that momentum gets towards the second people think outcomes are being manufactured. That's the danger of officiating bias. It doesn't just rob teams, it robs sport. And now Game 4 has become something way bigger than a playoff battle. It's about credibility, redemption, and accountability. The Fever aren't just playing stay alive. They're planned to prove that when still come from talent, not influence. Lexie Hull isn't just suiting up an injury tape. She's carrying a wave of every fan who's been screaming into the void about fairness, and the league is officially on notice. If Game 4 looks anything like Game 3, the damage won't be reputation, it'll be structural. Fans will check out, players will speak up, and a narrative will shift from rising league to corrupt system. That's how fast can turn. But if there's a silver lining in this mess, is that the players aren't folding. Lexie Hull's performance wasn't just impressive, it was defiant. She didn't let the whistle stop her. She didn't back down. She showed up for her team in a moment when everything around or felt stacked against them. That's leadership, that's heart, and that's why fans are rallying behind her. So, same with the rest of the Fever. Boston, Mitchell, Wallace, they're not play like victims, they're playing like a team with something to prove. And of the league think they'll just quietly bow out. They're in for a rude awakening. Game 4 isn't as another matchup, it's a referendum on what kind of league the WNBA wants to be. A league fairness is real and earned wins matter. or a league where legacy teams at the benefit of the whistle no matter what. Lexie Hull's not asking for favoritism, she's asking for fairness, and a league can't guarantee that. Damn, what are we even watching? So here's the question, are you watching game for see who wins or to see if the refs let them? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Was game 3 just bad officiating or something more sinister? Should the league investigate the refs or this display of tension boiling over? And if you're tired of fake narratives, bias, calls, and league agendas getting away of real competition, hit that like button, subscribe for more breakdowns, drama, and receipts, because the story isn't over and the truth always find a way to break through the noise. Game 3 of the Fever vs Aces series should have been a classic. Two teams with everything approved, legacy on one inside and rising underdog on the other. Instead, it became a textbook example of how rigged officiating can wreck the integrity of an entire playoff series. And right at the center, the storm, Lexie Hull, the most unlikely hero the postseason now for securing our just team's hopes, but a burden of calling out the entire system. Her fury wasn't performative, it was earned, and the silence from the league office since deafening. The Indiana Fever have clawed their way back into national relevance. Young core, scrappy defense, Aliyah Boss, and asserting herself in every possession. Kelsey Mitchell knocking day. Our shots like her contract depends on it. And then there's Hull coming off injuries, barely practicing and still dropping a double-double in the most hostile playoff environment imaginable. But what is the league reward? That with whistles now for Indiana, but against them again and again and again, and if there was every night where the WNBA could have shown it, takes competitive integrity serious. Only it was game 3, and instead it did the exact opposite. The favoritism for Las Vegas was so blatant fans weren't even angry, they were resigned, like, oh, of course the refs gave another phantom called the Aces in the final 2 minutes. It wasn't even shocking anymore, it was expected. That's how bad it's gotten. And you could see it on the players' faces, the way Boston shrugged after getting hammered in the paint with zero whistle, the look Lexie gave when she got called for a touch foul after getting dragged. On the previous possession, this wasn't as poor officiating, it was narrative enforcement. The defending champs must advance, the league can't risk losing its marquee franchise before finals. That's what it looked like, and the footage backs it up. But Lexie didn't just roll with it, she made noise, she stood tall, and she spoke up even when the league would prefer she didn't. And that's what changed everything, because this isn't just a sports controversy anymore, it's a movement. Social media has turned into an evidence room. Fans are applauding slow-mo footage, frame by frame breakdowns, play-by-play threads showing foul after foul going uncalled against one team. And they're not wrong, there are receipts, clips of clean blocks getting whistled, of Boston getting shoved under basket with zero cause, of Aces players getting bumped and immediately being sent to the line. And what is the league? Do nothing, no statement, no clarification, no transparency, not even a fake will review the officiating press release. And that silence, that's the part that's making this worse, because the absence of answers, fans draw their own conclusions. And right now, the overwhelming consensus is the league is protecting the Aces. What that for ratings, ticket sales, sponsorship dollars, or legacy? People believe it's rigged, and honestly, after watching game 3, who can blame them? You don't need to be a basketball expert to know when something feels off. And nothing about that game felt fair, especially not when Lexie Hull is literally limping around a court giving everything. She has only been met with another whistle the second she gets a fingertip on a path. She wasn't as upset after the game, she was done with the inconsistency, done with watching her team get punished for you're playing hard, done with officials deciding outcomes, and done with pretending that it's all just part of the game. Because it's not. This is bigger than just one playoff series. This is about whether the WNBA actually want to grow or whether just want to look like it's growing. You can ask fans who invest in teams' play, years rivalries, and then serve of officiating. It feels like it was scripted. You can't market the future women's basketball and then use the whistle to bury them, and that's exactly what fans on Game 3, the defending champs, got every benefit of the doubt, every borderline call, every bailout, while the Fever had a fight. Do not just the opponent, but the officials, and a narrative, and a almost still one. That's what makes it worse. Because despite all of it, Indiana was right. There are a few fair calls, and they take Game 3 whole. Becomes the headline. Boston get the credit she deserves. The league celebrate a new era rising. But instead we are here talking about bias, talking about rigging, talking about whether the WNBA has a referee problem that goes deeper than just one game. Because let's be real, this didn't start in Game 3. Fans have been complaining all season about the lack of consistency. The differences is now the stakes are higher. Now it's not just a Tuesday night regular season game. Is the playoffs. Careers are being made and broken reputations are being forged, and they're ruining the moment. And it's not just hurting Indiana, it's hurting the Aces too, because even the go on to when the series it'll be tainted. Every big play will be followed by but everyone will be viewed through the lens of what happened in Game 3. That's not fair to players, that's not fair to fans, and is not fair to the game. If the WNBA doesn't get control the narrative, it will define the rest of the postseason. Which brings us to Game 4. The stakes can be higher, not just of the Fever, who are fighting for their season, but for the league, which is now fighting for his credibility. If the officiating is clean, tight, and consistent, there's still time to salvage things. But if Game 4 looks anything like Game 3, it's over. The trust is gone, and once fans stopped trusting the product, they stop watch. King Lexie Hull didn't ask for any this. She came into the playoff ready to contribute. She worked her way back from injury. She showed up on her team needed her most. And now she's become the face of the resistance, the player who dared to call out what everyone else was thinking. And whether Indiana wins Game Aim for not how has already made her mark. She's bigger than the box score now. She's a symbol of grit, a symbol of fairness, a symbol of what happens when you refuse to stay quiet, even when the system is working against you. The league has a choice. It can keep pretending everything's fine. Linda whispers turn into roars, or can acknowledge what everyone already knows. Game 3 was a disaster, and it can happen again. Because this isn't just about the Fever anymore, it's about the league. So what happens next? To the refs call fair game? Do the Fever rise through adversity and push a series of bring? Or does it WNBA double down, protecting its power teams and sacrificing future stars in the process? One thing for sure, all eyes are on Game 4, not just because it's win or go home for Indiana, but because of integrity or bust for the lead. There's no more room for excuses, no more or bad neither no more. It evens out over time. That narrative died. Second leg, the whole walked off the court in Game 3, shoulders slumped, eyes burning. This glance, not from losing, but from knowing you were never meant to win. Because what everyone saw in that game wasn't random, it wasn't human error, it felt intentional, calculated. And the worst part, the league let it happen for years. Fans have been begging the WNBA to elevate, to be taken seriously, to be respected like the NBA. And the league has done a lot of things right. Market, stars, viral moments, cross-platform engagement. But none of that matters if the integrity of the actual game is in question, and right now it's absolutely in question. You can't build a legacy on shaky ground. You can't crown champions if people believe the crown was handed, not earned. And thanks the Game 3, that's where we're at. The Aces don't look dominant, they look protected. The Fever don't look outplayed, they look robbed. And they don't look neutral, they look compromised. And weather's perception of reality, perception is what drives a league right now. The perception is that Indiana is playing basketball. They're playing politics, fighting through bad calls, rigged momentum swings, and invisible foul lines. It only seemed to apply to them. And it's not just fans saying it. Players are hinting, coaches are biting their tongues, and post-games have flat out called it what it was unfair. And honestly, if someone did, because too many times in sports players are expected to stay silent, don't make waves, don't criticize a ref, don't risk a fine. But Lexie Hull didn't care about fines, she cared about fairness. And when she stepped up bandaged sore and still playing through pain, she said whatever. Every single Fever fan have been screaming at their TV, is that enough is enough, and what's wild as a whole wasn't even a star the lead with banking on. She's not the face of the franchise, she's not a first overall pick, but in Game 3 she played like the future of this team, like someone who knew the moment was bigger than her stat line. She had every reason to sit this game out. Instead, she gave him 16.10 rebounds and more hostile than half the healthy players on the court. And what did she get for it? Foul trouble, missed calls, cheap whistles, disrespect. She gave everything, the refs gave nothing back, and it so hard to watch that unfold without getting angry. Because here's the truth, the WNBA needed to series to be competitive. It needed rising stars like Boston and hold a shine. It needed to Fever's underdog run that push the defending champs to the edge. But instead of letting that narrative play out naturally, the lead chose a shortcut, the easy road, the protected path for Las Vegas. And now that decisions blowing up in their face, fans are turning loudly. The outrage isn't just coming from Indiana, it's national. Clips of bad calls going viral. Every major moment that game has been dissected in real time, and the verdict is nearly unanimous. The refs helped the Aces. When that's not an opinion, that's the headline. And Game for looming, the league's out a choice to make. Let the official still another one and towards your own credibility, or finally let the players decide the game. Let Boston and Wilson battle it out. Let Hull fight to the pain again. Let Mitchell cook. If she gets hot, just give. Fans would actually pay to see real basketball, because a scary thing is if they are